Don't trip on us.
All right. Well, welcome to Dayton Mediation Center. Is it okay if I tell you both a bit about how mediation works?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's an opportunity for the two of you to talk about things. Certainly, I'm here to support you in having this conversation. Simultaneously, I'm not an attorney or a lawyer, so I'm not going to tell you either of you how to do things, or I'm also not going to give you any type of legal advice as well. This is, as I said, complete your conversation, so the two of you will be able to speak to each other in a way that, there are multiple outcomes that can occur. One of them could be that an agreement could happen. Not that I'm pushing one way or another, but if you were able to come up with an agreement, certainly something that either yourselves could put down on paper, or I certainly could write it down for you. As I said, that's just one outcome of many outcomes that can occur. Additionally, as I stated, this is your conversation. I'm a neutral third party in this particular conversation. That all being said, this whole conversation is privileged and confidential, which means that I can't be called to testify based upon things I hear. Also, I don't speak about anything that happens here. As you see, I do have paper, and so I'll be getting your names here momentarily. Just track the conversation, but at the end of this conversation, everything that I write down on the paper, if I do take notes, is something that will be disposed of, and so that none of your information will go anywhere. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. And so, let me take a moment here and get names. Ma'am, what's your name?
I'm Carolyn.
Okay. Carolyn, is it okay to go by Carolyn?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And sir, your name?
Paul.
Paul. All right. So we've got Carolyn and Paul. All right. Well, this is your conversation, folks. Whoever would like to start first today, please be my guest.
Well, I can start. I don't know why I'm here.
So just
I don't know what, I don't know what the big deal is.
You don't know what the big deal is. You don't know why you're here.
Exactly.
Well, if you don't know why you're here, then how do you know what why would you say you don't know what the big deal is?
I don't know why you thought you had to go to your boss and get all of this going. That's what I don't really know.
And so, Paul, you're trying to clarify that you're not sure why Carolyn had to go to her boss and get all this going.
Exactly. I don't get it.
Because of the way you treat me, that's why I had to go to my boss. I'm tired of being bullied by you.
The way that he treats you, you're tired of being bullied. That's why you went.
Yes.
But Carolyn, I don't treat you any different from anybody else. I mean, I know you're a woman and this is sort of a man's world here, and I know you're pregnant, but I talk to you like I do everybody else. I just because you're a woman, I'm going to treat you just like I would anybody else.
And so you want to be clear, Paul, that it's a man's world, and just because she's a woman doesn't mean that you're going to treat her any differently.
Yeah.
That you're going to shoot straight with her.
Well, there's a point to be made, though, that some of the way you treat even the men in the workplace is inappropriate. So you treating me like everybody else doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, but why is it the only person who's ever complained about me is a woman?
Because apparently they don't want to stand up to you, but I'm not going to keep doing this with you. I have to deal with you about contracts and things like that, but I'm not going to have you keep treating me like that.
Treating you like what? I mean, we're in negotiations, Carolyn. It's not, we don't just, we're duking it out, trying to get these contracts done.
So this is serious business. You're not going to pitter-pat around, Carolyn, in order to get this done.
Exactly.
What do you mean? Yeah, it's a negotiation, but that doesn't mean you have to be nasty. I mean, negotiation is one thing, but when you get personal, when you make personal comments, I mean, that's not appropriate. It doesn't matter if I'm a woman or not.
And so,
And for the record, you don't even show up with all the information you need. So half the time you're unprepared for these conversations. It's ridiculous.
That's your opinion maybe, but
Well, mine and everybody else that has to negotiate.
my members don't seem to be complaining about how I represent them.
it feels as if there's a couple things here initially that you see quite differently. One of the things is, how how each other treats each other. Paul, how you treat Carolyn, and Carolyn, how you feel, perceive how Paul treats you. And this whole dichotomy of how males are treated and how females are treated. And then also it seems if there's another conversation about preparedness. Carolyn, you state that Paul's unprepared, and Paul feels as if you don't believe that that's the case. So it seems like there's a couple items out there that you're in disagreement about here early in the conversation. How you treat each other, also about preparedness in your particular relationship.
Yeah,
Mhm. I don't know. I mean, you say, why am I the one that finally took it higher? Well, I mean, have you noticed that none of my co-assistants have to deal with you anymore either? Our boss has done that because of the way you behave.
your boss has done that because you've gone crying to him like a little baby.
Okay, well, point in fact, here we go.
And so this is exactly what you're talking about, this comment that Paul just made about crying like a little baby. This is the
Completely
issue you have,
unprofessional.
Carolyn, completely unprofessional.
Just because I actually opened my mouth and made a complaint, I'm now a crying little baby.
Right, it's not enough that you went for your own reasons, that you thought that he's unprofessional, but now you're a crying little baby. You can't appreciate that.
Look, I know I come on strong. I mean, that's always been my way. I shoot straight, I tell it like it is. Most of the people I've worked with for the last 25 years since I've been the union rep here, most of the people I've worked with don't seem to have any trouble with that. I mean,
Yeah, it's 25 years ago, and today it's a different world. So maybe what flew 25 years ago was okay, but that is not okay any longer.
And so this seems like yet another instance where you see things differently, the timing and the culture that you're currently living in. Carol, you're saying that this isn't 25 years ago and that it's just not flying now, this behavior. And Paul, you're saying that, you're a straight shooter and, you tell things like it is. And so you're not trying to necessarily sugarcoat anything, but that's just the way you're coming at it.
Can you give me one example? I mean, I don't,
You just had one in here. Calling me a crying little baby is inappropriate and unprofessional. It's not like that's the first time something like that's happened.
The example he's looking for,
I mean, right, why do I
It's
need to
right
go
here.
to some
It
other
just
day?
happened.
You did it right in here.
yeah, okay, I hear that,
and so you check off on that, you heard that, you're clear.
Yeah, I mean, so what do you think, Carolyn, it would take for me to get Jim to back off on this? Because this is making me look bad with my members. Jim's saying that people can't work directly with me. I mean, this is making me look bad here. So what do you need from me? I mean, okay, so you want me to rein it in? I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know what to do. I am who I am, and I've got this way I've done this for all these years, and I don't know how to change.
And so once again, you're saying you are who you are, but you're also asking, Carolyn, what can she do to help you with the situation? And this is difficult, Boss Jim has got things that has you in situations uncomfortable, it's not working for you. And so you're asking Carolyn, what do you need to do in order to make this go away?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to clamp down and say you can't deal directly with these people, but nobody's telling me what they really want from me. So what do you want from me anyway?
Well, it doesn't, I mean, Jim said that we don't have to deal with you, but that doesn't really, I agree, that doesn't fix the problem at all. Because we still don't have to get these contracts negotiated. So, I mean, I agree that doesn't work, but at the same time, we aren't gonna put up with your behavior anymore. Your personal comments, like, if you wanna play hardball about the contract, that is fine. But I don't know why any other personal conversation has to happen in it, and you say random things, and it's just not appropriate.
So you agree with Jim that this lack of interaction, that's really not working. Simultaneously, when you do interact, this sarcasm, this type of language and conversation he's using, that's definitely not going to work. If you're using hard language around the contract, that's one thing. But interpersonally, that's completely something else, and that's not working for you.
Right.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I think it would be really hard for me to go into a negotiating session and have to sit there and think, can I say that? Is it okay if I say that?
Everybody that works in any organization has to be aware of what's coming out of their mouth. I mean, that's just the culture we live in today. Like, you have to be aware of who you're talking to. Whether it's because they're a woman or because, they work for some other department, whatever it is. So why do you think you don't have to do that when the rest of us do it every day? And every time we go into a meeting, we have to be aware of who's present in this meeting. Am I going to offend my boss's boss by saying something stupid? We all have to do that. So I don't know why you think you don't have to do that.
So the two of you are talking about situational awareness, and Carolyn, you're saying that it's something that when you go into situations, it's very important that you actually are cognizant of what you're saying, who's around, and those surroundings, so that you can do what you need to do in order to operate effectively within that. And Paul, I hear you saying that it's difficult. It could be a difficult situation for you in those particular spots, having to go through and think through every particular moment, what are you going to say, who was there. And so it sounds as if there's...
It is difficult. It is difficult. Think about it. I'm representing all these workers, and they're expecting me to negotiate for them. And then I've got to try to psychologize about what's going on with these other people that are sitting across from me, and then I've got this third thing now, and I have to think about, I better not say anything that offends anyone. I don't know if I can go there.
So these multiple different facets of what's going on in your environment can make it difficult to do your job. You've got the job to do one, you have the person sitting across from you, you're not quite sure where they're coming from, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, how should I operate here? Which just makes generally for a difficult situation for you.
And I gotta report back to my members.
And you gotta report back to your members.
All your members care about is the contracts. That's what you're reporting back to them.
Yeah, but see.
So, you referencing the fact that I'm pregnant
No,
today in this
no.
meeting is irrelevant.
No,
It doesn't
no,
matter.
if I
today.
don't
Talking
If
about
don't-
pregnancy, why did that
Right,
even
he
come
brought it
up?
up. First thing.
If I don't come on
this is him being
strong,
inappropriate.
if I don't come on strong, I don't get their interest met. I've got to
Being
come
pregnant
on.
has
So,
nothing to
you're
do
saying
with
that
what happens on paper. You referenced it at this meeting, but when it comes to us negotiating those guys' contract, it has nothing to do with who I am sitting across from you. So I don't know why it even comes up.
You're not even sure why it comes up because it has nothing to do with those contracts.
Right, we're
You're
talking
about
about
here,
the
what's that have to do
hours
with
they work,
anything?
the responsibilities they have, those kinds of things. I don't know why you reference anything about me personally when you do that.
I just don't think that's accurate, but, maybe it is, it doesn't seem like I talk about people personally. I'm just talking about these contracts.
And so once again, it seems as if you're seeing this particular, we've said, and this has been stated before, you're seeing this particular conversation a bit differently as well, where Carolyn, you're not sure why he comes up with these things, like he was talking about your pregnancy. Why is Paul even bringing this up? What does it have to do with the long and short of things? And Paul, you're not sure-
I brought up the pregnancy because I wanted her to understand that I've been accused of being sexist. I've been accused of a lot of things here. I hear stories that you're telling all the time your coworkers that I'm sexist, and I'm just saying I don't treat her any differently because she's pregnant. I don't do that.
Right, you're saying you don't treat her differently. You want her to know you're treating her the same as you treat anyone else, pregnant or not. And that's why you brought up the whole pregnancy.
Absolutely.
Just let her know that
Yeah.
you treat her with the same
Just-
level, the same respect and dignity that you do everyone else.
Yeah. I'm not sexist.
And Carolyn, it appears as if you don't think that's the case.
He thinks he's clear about who he is. Well, I'm not going to deal with the way he treats me. I'm not.
You're just not dealing with it.
You're the one that said this is making you look bad. Well, again, it's not just me. My co-assistants have also been told they don't have to deal with you. So at some point, this isn't going to be on me, it's going to be on you. I'm here
Well, I
to
know
have
it's
this
on me.
conversation, and
You
yet
put it on me.
all you can say is, "Oh, I'm not sexist. Oh, I didn't have your pregnancy to say that I treat you just the same." You shouldn't have brought it up at all. It's not relevant to this conversation.
And so once again, seeing it completely differently. Carolyn, you think that his conversation is sexist and he talks to you poorly, and it's not something that you're going to deal with. And Paul, you're saying that it's not sexist at all, that you treat Carolyn in the same way that you would anyone else, and you're just coming from a place of strength in order to make sure that you're able to speak to the people that you're dealing with.
I'm just trying to say that I don't come in. Carolyn's the first woman that's ever sat across from me. This has been men my whole time.
Uncharted territory for you.
And I'm just all I'm trying to say is, I'm trying not to treat her any differently just because she's a woman.
You said this multiple times, that you're not treating her any differently because she's a woman. It's always been men across the table, but now that there's a woman, once again, you don't want to make it as if there's been any difference.
See, that, to me, that's me trying to go out of my way not to be sexist.
And so you say you're working hard at it, Paul. You don't want to appear sexist, and you thought that that's what you were doing, despite what Carolyn has thought.
How are you going out of your way not to appear sexist? I don't understand that comment.
I'm treating you no differently than I treat any other man that's been in that chair.
I don't believe that you make the same kind of references to the men in this chair as that you have me, about what they're wearing, just things that are completely irrelevant to the conversation. I don't believe that's the case. Because men generally don't talk about each other's clothing. It's not like a big, especially, we're talking blue collar guys here. They don't talk about that
So
with each
your
other.
understanding, you haven't seen men talking that way.
I haven't seen any.
That Paul talks to you.
Right.
You haven't seen it.
Nope. I spend time with his guys. I always see them talking. They're there to do a job. They're outside in the weather. It's not about, and yet he references my clothing. It's not the same. So I don't believe that the last person that sat across from you that was a man, I don't believe he referenced his suit or his whatever that he had on.
So what you're telling me is, you don't want me to, if you look great, you don't want me to say that.
It's irrelevant to the conversation. That is not appropriate for you to say to me.
And so you're saying that you'd like Paul to stick to whatever business it is that you're dealing with.
Yes.
Start to have discussions about clothes. You don't see how that's pertinent to the conversation. Based upon usual conversations that people have with each other, just stick to the business.
Right. We're there to talk about his guys' contracts. Let's talk about them.
Well, I certainly won't do that anymore.
You said, at this point, you're clear about that. You're not going to do that anymore. You're not going to talk about Carolyn the way she's dressed. If she happens to have some type of outfit on that you think is appealing today, that's not something that you're going to comment on.
Right. All right, I get that. Carolyn, what do you need to have happen here today? What do you need from me? How can we make this go away? I got to get this. I need this to turn around. I don't like this this thing that Jim did based on your going to him about this.
We've just been talking about some of the things you can do, and you're saying, "Well, I'm just not sure I can do that." I'm not sure I can do that. I can't think about my guys and have a conversation with you and then be worried about how I say things. You just said you can't do it, so I'm not exactly sure why you keep asking me what you can do.
Ms. Carolyn, you're not quite sure why Paul's asking you what you should do based upon the fact that multiple times he's stated that he's having difficulty with certain facets of trying to have this communication with you.
Right, and we haven't even gotten back to the point about the fact that you come unprepared for those meetings on a regular basis.
Once again, Carolyn, you're speaking to unpreparedness of Paul, and you're saying that that's yet another item still out there.
Okay, I do regret the crying like a baby remark. I get that. I get that. And about the preparedness stuff, that's just not your issue.
It is if you and I are negotiating a contract.
If somebody doesn't feel I'm prepared, the people that are affected by that are the guys I represent.
So Paul, you're saying that Carolyn really shouldn't, that's not any of her concern.
Yeah.
It's the people
why-
that you're representing who should be concerned
Why-
about the
When we're
preparedness,
talking
not
about
Carolyn.
attendance policy and you come and don't have numbers in front of you to back up what you want for your guys, that affects the contract. Now, if your guys, I mean, obviously they're not at the table, they don't know that. So in some way, I'm looking out for your guys and I'm saying it's crap, because if we're talking about an attendance policy and I'm gonna put something in place and you're saying it's not needed, but I have numbers to back up what I say and you don't, that's a problem.
And so Carolyn, you're saying that his preparedness does affect you directly. If, for example, we're talking about numbers and you don't have them, you're also looking out for the guys as well. And if he doesn't have those things together, that definitely impacts you. And so you're calling foul on Paul's assertion that it doesn't.
Yeah, and it also just prolongs the negotiation. If you had everything you needed, we could negotiate it and get it done, but we don't. We have to keep coming back to the table because, oh, I didn't bring that with me, or, oh, I don't know those numbers right off the top of my head. I don't have time for that. And then it just makes more dealings with you.
It elongates the process and it continues the contact that you have with Paul, which hasn't worked for you so far.
So you're telling me you don't like the bullying, as you call it, you don't like me being strong, you're criticizing.
Let me be clear. I don't like you being strong about things that have nothing to do with contract. That's the part us negotiating the contract and you being, hard about that, that's, as long as it's completely about the contract, I have no problem with that. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. But anything outside of the contract or whatever we're meeting about, all the other stuff in the world, I don't need to hear your opinions. I don't need to hear what you think. I don't need you making comments about. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
And so, once again, it feels that there are multiple items that you're speaking about. Two definitely that have come up multiple times are the conversations the two of you are having outside the contract and how those goes, or how they occur. Carolyn, you can't appreciate them, and Paul, you're saying that you're talking strong and you're trying to deliver a message to the individuals involved. And also this conversation about unpreparedness and who it affects. Paul, in your mind, you think that if you are unprepared, it's not even Carolyn's business. It only affects the individuals that you represent.
Well,
Carolyn, you're saying that that's not the case. It definitely does affect you because his unpreparedness affects the negotiations as well as the length of them, which cause you to be in further proximity with Paul, and that's problematic. So there's a few things going on there. I'm not sure where you.
Well, there's more going on than that. I mean, at least there's more to the story. When you say I didn't have attendance figures ready, you brought that issue up at that meeting. You had all this stuff. You had all this stuff ready that you wanted to spring on me. Of course, I didn't have attendance figures ready. What I would suggest, Carolyn, if that's an issue for you, then you and I and your other assistants, whenever we get together to talk about this stuff, we should agree ahead of time what issues we're going to talk about. And then I can come prepared, but of course I'm not going to be prepared with attendance figures. If you just bring up attendance as an issue,
So you're looking for a little pre-planning with Carolyn because you're
Why
thinking,
not?
what did the attendance issues have to do with your particular conversation? And in
Well,
that
if
way, you
we're
think that Carolyn
overhauling
has
the
sprung.
contract though, of course that's gonna come into play. It's part of the contract. So I guess I don't understand, basically, many times unless sometimes
So you
there's
don't like-
specific
you-
meetings called for a specific part of the contract. But a lot of times, yearly, we negotiate, basically anything in the contract is on the table, is my understanding.
Yeah,
And
all right.
so, I don't
All
understand
right.
why I need to
So
tell you.
you're rejecting, just so I understand, you're rejecting my suggestion that we
I'm confused
talk
by your
about.
suggestion because I don't
May I
understand.
finish here? You're rejecting my suggestion that we agree ahead of time for each session when we get together to talk about, that we identify which issues we're gonna talk about at which negotiating session. You don't like that idea?
That's fine we're going into a session knowing we're only gonna deal with one issue. But like I said, at least
Or
once.
two or three, whatever.
But at least once a year, we're looking at the entire contract. I'm not gonna go down line by line, and you notice you said that I should come up with that agenda.
I didn't say
So
that.
Carolyn, you said that
Yes,
a
you
couple
did.
times.
Originally, you said, well, you should basically send me a list of everything you wanna talk about.
No, I said we should agree on what we're gonna talk about.
And
At
so,
least that's what I intended to say.
you intended to say, Paul, that you should be in some agreement about what it is you talk about, that you and Carolyn get together to speak about these items prior to the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's hard to, when a contract is this complicated, it's hard to come prepared with data on every issue
I do.
okay, Miss
And
Carolyn.
so-
I'm
so
just
you're
saying,
you're
like.
just really
when
hot
I-
stuff here
when
today,
I know
aren't
we're
you?
discussing the entire contract, if any issues that I have about it, I bring those with me.
And this is yet another issue the two of you are seeing quite a bit differently about contracts and how to prepare for having a conversation about those contracts. Carolyn, I hear you saying that once a year, at least yearly, you get together and talk about these contracts, and there's multiple items on there. And so Paul should be prepared to have this conversation. In fact, he's not. This really surprised me today. And Paul, you're saying, that there have been situations where Carolyn has sprung things on you that you didn't necessarily think were part of the conversation, but yet you were surprised that Carolyn had brought that up. Therefore, you think that you and Carolyn should be able to get together prior to these meetings in order to talk about it, so you're on the same page. And it seems as if the two of you are on completely different pages about how to go forward with this whole conversation about, or these proceedings where there are contracts involved.
These contracts are complicated. We meet 3, 4, 5, 6 times. It just depends how long it takes. I think it would be very helpful, and it might lend itself to less argumentation if we agreed before the first session, let's look at this issue and this issue during the first session. And, I think it would make it easier on me in preparation. I think it would make it easier on you in preparation, Carolyn. And then maybe we wouldn't get so animated and upset if we knew we were going to be talking about this part of the contract and we finished that part, then we part ways and we agreed before we leave, next session, let's bring up whatever other issues need to be part of the overall conversation.
So Paul, you're just looking for a process in which you and Carolyn can get an understanding of what it is you're talking about. So perhaps that could ease any friction that has come up in the past, so that going forward, those things wouldn't happen because you've been able to get a common goal and game plan together.
Seems to me, I know that I have a tendency to come on strong. And if I've offended you anywhere along the line, I apologize for that. I really do. And I can try to do better about that. I just think it would be easier for me to keep all that down if we had some awareness ahead of time where it wasn't all up for grabs on the table and anything could come in at any moment. If we knew we were just going to be talking about a couple of parts of the last contract and how they were going to change or stay the same, I think that would help keep me from doing whatever it is that has been offending you.
So Paul, you apologize for coming on strong. Simultaneously, once again, you're thinking that if you had some type of game plan, some type of agenda that you could put forth, that would help you perhaps contain the strength that you put forth, get you in a better place that you can have these conversations alongside Carolyn.
It'd be certainly something I'd be willing to try to work on.
You'd be willing to work on that.
That's fine. I mean, as far as us figuring out what topics we're talking about at each session, I can do that.
And Carolyn, you're saying that that's something you do, talk about whatever items you need to with Paul prior to getting together?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. So it sounds as if the two of you are on the same page about the, getting together, talking to each other. Please tell me if I'm wrong, that covers the whole idea of preparedness, that you were speaking to prior. And it may also, please once again tell me if I'm wrong, that may also speak to the speaking out of term, Carolyn, that you thought or perceived from Paul. As Paul, you apologized, and perhaps this opportunity for you to talk prior to, as you said earlier, Paul.
I mean, I hear that. I heard his apology, but I'm not sure what one has to do with the other. I mean, just because he wasn't aware of what topics were going to come up in the session, I don't know how that, him knowing that is now going to help him not make remarks he shouldn't be making. So for me, I'm a little stuck there because I'm not sure what one has to do with the other.
Right, you're not
Yeah,
sure.
it definitely addresses the preparedness issue. Hopefully, if he knows what we're talking about, he'll come prepared for that. But I don't know how that helps his attitude,
Carolyn,
his overbearingness.
I'm trying to say, I mean, what do you want me to do? Get down on my hands and knees?
I'm saying I don't
and-
know. You just said
I'm
they're
trying to
related,
say,
and I don't
I
understand how they're
apologize for
related. And I
goodness
heard you
sake.
say that,
So,
but I don't understand.
what are you
how-
doing with that?
You're
And
not
so-
listening.
And so the two of you are talking at the same time. I'm not quite sure how that's working for you. Carolyn, you shook your head, it's not working.
It's not.
And so I'm not quite sure if you want to come up with any guidelines or any ground rules for having your discussion. There's multiple things that you can do. Some of them perhaps could be, one person speaking at a time, or each of you, taking turns, or something along those lines. Certainly, it's up to you all how you want to proceed.
Feels to me just like it is when we're negotiating contracts. She just keeps piling it on. And I mean, this whole time here today has been just, what a son of a bitch Paul is, and, he can't do this, he does this wrong, and I just don't know what I mean, I've apologized, I don't know what more you want from me, Carolyn.
Well, I was
So
trying to
Paul,
ask you a
this is-
question, and you wouldn't answer my question, and you took it someplace else.
So what was your question? I don't,
Right? You don't know because you didn't listen. My question was
all right, so
how.
once again,
See, we're
I
not
didn't
listening.
listen.
And so the two of you are having difficulties with the discussion at this point. Carolyn, you don't believe that Paul's listening, that he's, that he keeps interrupting you when you're trying to talk. And Paul, you feel as if, Carolyn is piling on at this point. You're not quite sure, where she's coming from. You tried to offer apologies simultaneously. You feel as if she just categorically rejected them. And so it seems tough. I'm not sure where you want to go from here.
Again, I heard your apology. I want to know how us figuring out what we're talking about at each meeting is going to help you not do the same behavior in the future. I'm not clear about how those are
I
related.
recognize they're two different things. I'm suggesting two things today.
Okay?
I'd like a process, a little more advanced planning.
Mhm.
You've agreed to that.
Yes.
And I'm saying, I hear you. I recognize that if you went to Jim and Jim feels strongly enough about this that all of your colleagues, can't have direct contact with me and all that, I realize you all are unhappy. And all I can say is, I hear what the complaint is. I don't know how well I can change the way I've done these things all these years, but I'm willing to try. I don't know what else more I can say today than that.
And so, Paul, you're saying that you recognize what Carol was saying. These are two different issues, and you spoke already about the advanced planning. The two of you are agreeing about that, and you recognize, based upon the fact that that Jim has an issue with you and your conversation with Carolyn, and this affects the way you talk to your colleagues. You're apologizing. You recognize they're completely two different items, and you'd like to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
That was helpful because earlier it felt like you were kind of mushing them together in some way that I didn't feel like they were. So that was helpful.
Okay, so that works for you now that perhaps Paul was able to delineate these two items, the way his conversation and the advanced planning. Okay.
So I feel like the thing we need to figure out now before we leave is what we tell Jim. And because at this point, the plan is that we're going to be more clear with each other about what each meeting is about. But the other part is you're gonna try to be more aware of what you say. You know, I don't know how specific, I mean, you know, I appreciate you coming and having this conversation today. I know you didn't have to do that. And I don't know how specific you wanna be with Jim and what you're comfortable with.
Well, I mean, I would hope you'd report back. I don't know if I'll have a chance to talk to Jim, but I would hope you'd report back that, you know, we've agreed to do a little advanced planning before each session, and that, and just say to him, I hear, you know, I hear. I mean, I don't know if I fully understand it. I don't know if I recognize every time something comes out of my mouth that's offensive, you know, to you or others. But I hear the feedback, and if you would just tell him, going forward, I'm gonna try to get better, and that I would really like to go back to being able to communicate directly, so we don't have to do everything through Jim. That just seems crazy to me.
And so, Paul, you're thinking that you're not quite sure when you're going to be able to see Jim. So Carolyn definitely can let Jim know that you're totally on board with going forward in a way that, you know, the conversations, moderating the types of conversations you have with Carolyn. You're not quite so sure the things that, you know, could come out of your mouth, but at the same time, you're going to work on that, as you stated previously. And also, the advanced planning, that's going to be something that you put forward, and Jim can definitely Carolyn can definitely let Jim know that, because it's difficult having to work the way things are currently.
Fine with me?
Okay, Carolyn, you're good to go. Okay. Paul, you too?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Well, it sounds as if you guys have, you know, come to agree about multiple things here today. Is this something I could put down on paper for you, or perhaps you could do it yourself? Either way.
Do you want it on paper
Or a verbal agreement also is an option.
Well, I think, I don't know that anything has to be written. I mean, we're all big boys and girls here, you know.
Okay. So two of you got together. Okay. All right. Well, appreciate you being here today.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for your time.
All right. No problem. And cut.
Oh my God, the rubber band broke.